Hey y'all, so today's video is going to be a quick little video on what I think the best hammer style is for conceal carry snub nose revolver. And what I think that is the shrouded hammer. With that being said, let's go down to the bench and I'll explain why. Here we are on the bench and we're going to talk about why I think the shrouded hammer is the best hammer for snubbies. So traditionally you've got three main hammer styles when it comes to revolvers. The traditional standard hammer with the ability to cock for a single action pull or pull the trigger normally for a double action pull, right? Alright, you've got the hammerless model, which I don't actually have one here, but basically you can just imagine a gun like this, but without a hammer or without a hammer spur, and the back is usually covered up. And then you've got the shrouded hammer, which is usually mostly seen on snub nose, which is why we're kind of talking about snubbies today. But that is basically like the normal hammered version, but we'll have a shroud around the hammer, kind of preventing the snagging when drawing the gun, which is one of the main reasons why I like shrouded hammers. So the question is, obviously, people like shrouded hammers because of the ability to they're less chance of them snagging and all that. But why do you need a hammer at all in concealed carry is what most people will ask. Most training you take nowadays, most people, when they talk about defensive revolver shooting, they talk about the fact that your average engagement is at 7 yards, that it's going to be a very quick engagement, that you're not going to have the time to cock a hammer, you're not going to have the need to cock a hammer, that pretty much the draw and shoot will be what happens, and there's really no need for it. But that's not always the case. The fact of the matter is there has been defensive shootings that have been greater than 7 yards, and where maybe perhaps you do have more time for taking that more precise shot. Perfect example was the Texas church shooting that happened last year in 2019, where I'm not going to name the bad guy, but bad guy comes into the church, starts shooting up the place, and multiple people in the church were armed, and they all pressed their guns into action. But the good guy that actually took the shot did so at a decent distance, and from what I can remember, his quote was the only shot he had available to him was a headshot, so he had to implement good accuracy, and thankfully he did, and he stopped the bad guy. But in that kind of situation where multiple people are drawing the gun, and maybe you have that need to, one, you might have the extra half second to cock a hammer, and two, you might have the need for your most accurate shot, I like having the ability to cock a hammer. Whereas with a double action only gun, you don't have that ability. Now, obviously, double action guns are still plenty accurate. Again, I'm not saying that a double action only gun is inaccurate by any means. I can pull off quite accurate shots with this. The trigger pull on this is not bad at all. And with practice, you can very easily stage this trigger, as I can kind of show here, right? You can easily stage it right before the hammer falls and still pull off a fairly accurate shot. I'm just saying, when the adrenaline kicks in and you go from 0 to 1,000 in about a half second, it's nice to have options. And the reality is the downsides of having a shrouded hammer are very minimum. Basically, one of the big downsides, I guess, is availability. You will mostly see shrouded hammers on snub-nose guns that are more prone to be stuck in a pocket or tucked in a waistband, where traditionally with full-size guns such as this, this is a Model 69, this is a 329 PD, you won't see shrouded hammers, and you will less often even see concealed or bobbed hammers. Obviously the risk with something this size is still there, that you could get this caught in a shirt or something, but the odds of getting this caught pulling it out of your pocket are pretty much non-existent unless you have really big pockets. But basically, you will only see these on small guns and stuff like that. But that's one of the few downsides. The only other downside is and this is minor, you will see a little bit more bulk and a little tiny bit more weight, maybe like another ounce or two of weight when you're buying a shrouded hammer gun versus a hammerless or standard spurred hammer design, only because usually the shroud, of course, adds material and whatnot. And the only other thing, I guess, is sometimes shrouded hammer guns could be a little bit harder to cock because, obviously, pretty obvious to go from trying to pull a fully exposed hammer that you just have to pull on versus having, generally you'll have like a little nub here with serrations that you go and pull down, basically pull down the track that it appears to run in. Obviously it's, it's just a hammer, but it kind of, most people when they look at it, it kind of looks like it's running down a track when you pull it. But that's about the only other thing. And actually it's funny because while there aren't as many options out there, there are plenty of options to turn a hammered gun such as this into a shrouded hammer gun via, you'll see some of the aftermarket companies that have been producing for quite a many years, adapters that will basically attach onto the back of the gun and act as their own shroud. In fact, I even can remember seeing pictures of grip companies that did the same thing, where it would be a grip that would come up and kind of cover the back of the gun, allowing for, again, a shrouded hammer. So that's just kind of my quick thoughts on why I think shrouded hammers are the best kind of hammer style to have on a conceal carry snubby. Is it gives you options. It gives you the ability to decide what you do and don't want to do when it comes to pulling the trigger, and it doesn't limit you to just one main trigger pull. So that's my video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Let me know down below what your particular favorite snub nose hammer style is, and have a good day.